Hi, I'm Brandon Bronaugh, and welcome to another episode of The Transition Expert. Today's guest is going to be Heather, and Heather's going to be joining us to discuss transition related issues pertaining to her father, who's coming of age and living independently in a home that's been challenged with a number of different obstacles. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Thank you. Today's guest is Heather and John. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Oh, I'm doing fine. And you? Yeah.
We're great.
All right. So, listen, today's episode is going to be as informative as possible. We're going to cover as many bases. I just want to get to know you. I want the audience to get to know you. I want them to have a better understanding as to what you're going through so that they can get the strength and encouragement, obviously, to get through whatever they're going through as well. So, I just want to start from the beginning. How did you get involved with the situation, Heather?
My mom actually saw your ad on the TV, and I don't want to say, is it clutter or hoarding issue? It's probably been going on for a while. I think a lot of us knew about it, but we hadn't tackled it. We were sort of waiting for John to be ready. Think he's ready now. And she saw the ad and she had sent it to him. And I said, it's great that we got the number, but somebody's got to call. Somebody's got to use it. So that's when I filled it out and reached out because I really feel like John was ready.
Good. Now, John, how long have you been dealing with the housing situation? What is the housing situation, first of all?
Well, there was a separation from my wife in 1995. And before that point, I was controlled or constrained. So if I started collecting too much stuff, there would be somebody there to stop it. But after that point, there really wasn't. So slowly, things began to accumulate, and to the point where the whole space became choked.
What are some of the things that you find yourself collecting, and when do you think you started collecting these things?
I don't know, just stuff. And at some point, where it seems like 3 lifetimes ago, I was working in a different field, and they transitioned me out of working in the field to working in a support environment, and then working from home. So all the books and manuals and stuff that I had from that technical job came home, and whatever. So yeah.
Now, the things that you collected, it sounds like they were work related, and you said you were working in a support role, which immediately to me means, an IT role. I mean, were you an IT engineer, software kind of a profession? Is that the profession you were in?
Yeah, I was working doing repairing is providing support for computerized telephone systems and corporate.
Now,
data switching.
We've done hundreds and hundreds of transitions on IT personnel and professionals. For some reason, a lot of those roles where you're behind a computer and you're working from home end up in some really challenging living situations. How much time do you think you spent at home working? How many hours a week do you think you found yourself at home?
Well, when I was out in the field, it was forever. When I transitioned to home, then it was more structured, because I'd be actually taking taking calls from customers and taking calls from technicians. And so it's a structured time.
Now, prior to 95, it sounds like your wife at the time kept a lot of those things under control. Do you think you guys had a lot of fights about some of the things you were bringing home or accumulating back then?
I was given a space. I was given spaces I could fill up.
Got it. Like a sort of like a man cave, if you will.
Well,
Me on the floor,
Man floor.
the third floor.
Now, Heather, John's your father. What was John like when you were living at home, and what was it like in the house with the items and so forth?
I think when John went to work, when he had a job where he had to go, he did better than having to work from home. I think that sort of led to sort of the downward spiral, so to speak. I do think it was always probably a personality trait or tendency to collect things. I think the kids growing up leaving, my mom separating, and then he had this big house and nobody in it. And just my unqualified opinion, part of the reason is collecting stuff was to fill the void.
To fill the void. Now, when did you get the divorce, John? What year was that?
but we're not divorced, just separated.
Or separated? I'm sorry.
We're separated by 50 miles, and she's
I don't
out.
know what year.
Oh, what year was 95?
95.
But there was no divorce.
How did you react to the divorce? I mean, how was life like in the home after the divorce, and who was at the
Well,
house?
There's no divorce.
No divorce. We're still married.
No, I'm so sorry, not the divorce. How was life like in the home after the separation in 95? What was it like coming home? I mean, well, technically, you were still working from home, so you never really left the home, right?
Yeah, at some point I went manic and started collecting cans and bottles, just doing stuff. But I'm still working as well.
Do you think you had were you having any struggles with maybe depression at that point?
Probably.
Did you talk to anyone?
We also collected the orange street cones. We got a big collection of those. The orange street cones.
Only a few.
Only a few. So John, what was your infatuation with the cans? Were you into
So cans and bottles? It was just something. It was just something to do.
And they're worth 5 cents.
Yeah.
say that again, Evan?
They're worth 5 cents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that didn't really matter.
Did you have any visitors around this time? Who was coming to visit you in the house around this time, John?
At some point before I totally filled it up, I had somebody who also worked somebody at the restaurant, Jerry Buzzard, and then his girlfriend moved in, and they took a room, and they had a friend that came in, and he took a room, kind of. But at some point, they left, and it was interesting why they were there.
Were they contributing to some of the accumulation, if you will?
No, not really. They were just there. They were there. There was no rent. There was no anything. They sometimes he and his girlfriend got into battles, but.
So Heather, when you would call Dad, how would your conversations be when you would call him? What would be the interactions when you would call home? LifeCycle sort of encompasses and embodies that nature of how we adjust to change. LifeCycle clients range from the son or daughter taking care of the affairs for their mom or dad, from a recent retiree anticipating getting their house ready for sale and all the hassles and hurdles that they're going to have to take a home that's been in the family for 30, 40 years, or to a client that maybe struggled with hoarding, and don't quite know who to call or how to call to get help. We're the family when the family isn't there. Whether it's just too much of a daunting task for your loved ones or yourself to handle, you contact us. We answer the call, and they're definitely the solution for you.
You've met him, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You've met him.
No, when you would call home, yeah.
I know. I was just saying, like, you've met
Sister
him. What you see, like, this is what you get. No, I think there was a point, definitely transition after my mom left and graduated and left, that I kind of wasn't allowed in the house anymore. Like, I've seen him over the past 15, 20 years, and it was Fort Knox. You weren't allowed in. I knew it was getting bad. I didn't know how bad until yesterday. But he started to talk about the clutter and the hoarding, but he wouldn't let anybody in. I think the last person actually in was my mom when she went to get the cat.
And how did your mom react to going into the home? What was her initial reaction?
She didn't have to go in. She just called out and the cat came.
Oh, so she never really physically came into the home.
I don't think so.
She said she went to the
maybe she did.
Knee deep, I think.
No, you probably opened the door to the kitchen that was knee deep, but you probably stopped there.
Got it. Well, I had, like Heather said, I did have the privilege of obviously meeting you, John, in person, and you have a very charismatic, fun-going personality. But the strategy in which talking with you is, you tend to be very deflective or in avoiding certain topics. How did you know that there was a problem with such a master at being avoiding? Such a mastery of avoidance with your father. How did you know that this was different than his usual behavior or his usual responses that you would get? When did you know that this was different?
You mean that he was receptive?
Yeah.
To help? I think when I spoke to my mom and she said she'd found a place, and I think her finding it carried some weight that maybe others wouldn't have. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I said, Mom said she found a place. Are you okay if I call? Because he hadn't wanted help. I mean, Brandon, we have all tried for years to get in, to get access, to do something, or to encourage movement on his part. And this is the first time that I felt like there was a receptiveness to help.
Now, yesterday was the first. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think you saw kind of yesterday when I had broke down when I saw what was there is like, I feel like I should have done more sooner. I should have been more forceful. I don't know how that would have gone over, but I feel like I failed him on some level by not pushing this sooner or really verifying how bad it was as far as not having heat, not having proper water, and just the whole condition of the home.
Now, when you first saw the inside of the house, what was your initial thoughts? What did you think of how would you describe the living conditions?
A bad scene from Hoarders.
A bad scene from Hoarders.
Brandon, when we were climbing over the piles, mm-hmm. That was, we had to like sled down to get out the front door.
Right. No, it was definitely an act of acrobatic athleticism to get from one end of the house to the other. But my only question is, John, how did you negotiate that every day? You're getting a little older, obviously. Did you find that it was challenging to get from one area to the next? And if so, when did you realize it was getting to the point where it was being very dangerous?
Well, at one point recently, I just stopped going. Okay. I go enough to take care of the cat, and that's it.
How long ago would you say that was? When did you get to the point where you hit the wall where it's just like it's no point anymore?
Probably the last few months, mm-hmm. Half year or so.
Okay.
At least, yeah.
Now, did you ever have any falls in the property?
False? Hold on.
Well, one time off the back porch a few years ago when I was picking up some tools from somebody, and I just sort of, as I was leaving and getting ready to leave with the tools, I just kind of forgot that I was there, and I turned left before the stairway, and I just walked off. That and beautiful made a beautiful divot in the ground and a thud. And the Watsons, the back neighbor, the Watsons had his window open and he stuck. I think I mowed something like that. That wasn't good. And he stuck his head out the window, he tells me, and looked down and said, "John, are you okay?" And I said, "I'm checking. I'll let you know." And I slowly got myself back up and moved on.
I mean, that's yet another example of you making, humor out of a very dangerous situation. Those falls in the houses, those falls like that represent millions of fatalities every year. And when you add the amount of clutter and the obstacles, sharp objects, things that you can hit your head, and the lack of communication or visitation from the outside world, it makes those circumstances when you do fall a much more dangerous situation to recover from, because most of the outside world aren't coming to your home to check on you every day, because you basically acted as a shutter where you shut the outside world out and you didn't let people come in. So they're not just going to come knock on the door and do wellness checks and say, "John, I haven't heard from you in a couple of days," which is very dangerous, obviously. Your way of responding to things is much like a lot of other clients that I've dealt with. I think the thing that really saddens me in your case is that getting to a point where you just don't go back is a normal reaction. That's something that 9 out of 10 of us, when living in or walking in your environment, would immediately feel that this environment is uninhabitable. It's uninhabitable. You can't live here. No one's living here. But you stopped living there. You were living there all the way up until a month, maybe 2 months ago. What was life like living in this environment? Where did you sleep every day?
In a pile of clothes on the third floor.
And I mean, what was waking up in that environment like to you, John? I mean, it had to be uncomfortable for you, right?
No, it was, for me, it was fine. The cat didn't care. She says, "Oh, look, stuff to climb over. Great."
Right. See, a lot of cases where this level of hoarding or the severity of this hoard, um, and then there's pets involved. A lot of people feel a lot of pet compassion for the animals that are
Oh,
also living in this environment.
absolutely. Well,
I mean,
it was, yeah, it was good. It was at the end. It was getting a problem because then I wasn't around as much, and then it's a problem of I'm gonna have to do something with the cat. But before that point, um, as you can imagine, at some point, several couple of years ago, I stopped cooking in the kitchen because you can't get to anything.
right.
So, but I was still coming home at night.
Well, I mean, just to give some clarity or just confirmation on the condition of the home, if you will, for viewers that are listening, we rate properties on a scale of 1 to 3. And we've transitioned thousands of properties. One is that there's some level of clutter where things are getting out of hand, and they're looking to worsen. Two, you're starting to see clutter, egresses, things that are being blocked. And then three is the worst level of a hoarded environment. And those are levels that are usually warranted for condemnation, where a health department, the fire department, the police department, emergency medical services would that are mandatory reporters will come in these environments and they'll immediately notify the authorities to have these environments condemned because they're a safety hazard, and in a sense that someone could get hurt or die. The living environment that you were in is one of the worst that I've been in 13 years of doing this. And it breaks my heart. And it's the reaction that I saw from Heather that says it all. When she went into the environment, I think she braced herself. She braced me. And she told me, she said, this is going to be like the show that you're involved with on Hoarders. But I don't think she understood the level of deterioration. And it's not just from the hoard, but there were instances where me and Heather were walking up the rear of the property because we couldn't come in through the front door. So we had to walk around the rear where the porch itself was basically collapsing and disintegrating. It's not just the hoard, but it's also the property itself is in disrepair. I mean, there's some plumbing issues, electrical issues, structural issues, possible foundation issues, that make a home like this uninhabitable, but also very, how can I put this? It's just back up a little bit. The property that we're talking about is in a very prized area. It's in Cambridge, in between Harvard University and MIT. One of the most prized real estate in the country. And in fully renovated condition, a house like this can easily sell for $2 million. But John, you're not living. The house is so bad that you're not living in that environment. And most people that are listening to this couldn't fathom a person in such a privileged situation that you're in, living the way that you're living. How would you respond to those individuals that think that way?
I, s- well, I literally almost, I was stopped. I stopped living there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I visited
Mm-hmm.
because it was so difficult for me to get in and out.
Right.
It's, you know, so
Brandon, can I translate the question for him a little bit?
Sure.
I think he's asking if it's such a desired neighborhood, and it has I think he used the word privilege. It's such an amazing home in a desired neighborhood, and people would love to live there, and it's almost like it's squandered a little bit.
Yeah, in knowing John and in meeting him, he's the most humble person in the world. He's very down to earth. I mean, he's not the kind of person that would take for granted an opportunity or a blessing that he received. But other people will look at this and they're saying, with the housing market being what it is, I can't even afford to live in Massachusetts. And John's living in a very prized area in Massachusetts. At some point, John, did you fall out of love with living in that area? Did you fall out of love with the house? Did you not even care anymore about these worldly possessions? Were those secondary to the fact that you were alone and you felt like you were missing out on more important things in your life?
it didn't really matter to me. I have to be around people.
Mm-hmm. So being around people for you and being isolated for you was basically an attributing factor to why things turned out the way they turned out for you. Would you agree?
And yeah, I'm not. I don't know that. I don't really have a good. I don't have a good answer for
Well,
that.
let me paraphrase that a little bit. Most of the time, when we go into situations where hoarding is involved, people have a sense of prejudging. They like to judge. They like to say that this isn't a problem that people who are intelligent or people who have means or people who have money have. This is a problem for those people, and they like to marginalize the mental health aspect of what's involved. John is no different than anybody else that we've dealt with. You know, John went through his struggles, and you dealt with them the best way you could. And when it became too much for you to deal with, you finally agreed to get help, and that's the most important thing. And I think that's what I want to be able to defend you and be able to speak on your behalf for people who are listening, is that no one, and I mean no one, is immune to life's troubles. um you were happy when you had your family together, and when that didn't work and you had the issues with the marriage and the family, the kids getting older, you had a hard time. And at this point, what do you want to do differently? What's important to you, even after all that you've been through? What's the silver lining at this point? What's important now?
Mm.
Can I have one bit to what I think why it's to gotten the way it is John and I have the conversation all the time, like, John, you deserve a bed to sleep in. You deserve heat. You deserve water. He goes, I don't need it. I don't need it. It's almost like it's doesn't feel worthy, or that if he has those things, it's taking from others.
Now, one of the things that I mentioned, that I heard John mention earlier, is that I believe he's uh, supporting another family or another entity. Is that what he's currently doing? And has he always done that?
Well, now I ran into a situation over the last year where somebody I work with got into a bad situation with his family, and they got stuck on the southern border. They believed the lie. I couldn't stop them from coming in time, and they were they were in a life threatening situation. They were
So
stuck in Mexico.
so
And I found, yeah.
so are you helping them, or are you helping them the best way you could?
Yeah, initially, Francisco told me, uh, God willing, he just needed my help. If Border Patrol, whatever, contacted them, yes, I know these people, and they have a place to go, they have a job to go to, and they're not going to be a burden, whatever. And he just needed that point of contact. But then that changed. That changed completely when they got to the border, and they were immediately sent back to Reynosa, and they backtracked off again, tried again. The same thing happened, and they were stuck. And reportedly the worst cartel city in Mexico, and with no way out. Uh,
So you came in and you helped. So I mean, that speaks volumes about who you are as a person, John. I mean,
yeah,
Heather,
yeah,
how does it make?
there were other people that did. There was a pastor that saw this family unit as a very humble unit, and he provided assistance and gave them sanctuary for a month. But I was able, while this was going on, and this is context, at some point I was able to provide uh, support, financial support when they needed it, emotional support as well. And the way I looked at it, I'm not for open borders. So contrary, as Wayne says, I can't believe you're doing this. And I'm saying, and I'm thinking, I can't save 100,000 people, but I can save 3.
But John, you've always
And
been
did.
the person that will give the shirt off their back. He's always been extremely giving, almost to the point of selflessness.
Right. Well, Heather, how does it make you feel knowing that your father is such a warm, compassionate person, but he's not taking care of himself? What do you think needs to be done to take care of him so that he doesn't get the short end of the stick as it seemed like he's gotten over the past few years? I mean, what do you what solutions do you recommend to protect John and make sure John's okay and he puts himself in the same regard that he puts others?
First, he is warm and compassionate, but he's stubborn as all heck too. So it has been, I think I knew it. I think the family has known it. I think what I saw yesterday, and Brandon, I would not have been in that home if it wasn't for you. If it wasn't for your company, you coming in almost permitted me to see what was going on. I guess now at the point, I'm not going to take no for an answer. He needs to be in a healthy living environment. He needs to have heat and running water and a bed and a room. And those are the basics that he deserves. He doesn't have that now. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I think I have enough of his other friends and family behind me that, John, we need to get you in a healthy living environment. It's not a choice anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Where you are at this point, John, you need someone that's going to fight like you fight for other people's for you, because you need to know that you deserve better. You deserve a living environment that's conducive to your health. At this stage of your life should be easier for you, but unfortunately, you've made it remarkably challenging and difficult at a time where you don't have all the luxuries that you would have had 30, 40 years ago to be acrobatic and as agile. So we have to protect you. And in a lot of cases, I've seen and I've recommended and advocated for loved ones to come in and to be power of attorneys, to come in and step forth and handle the finances, to handle the affairs, to make sure that proper nutrition is being given to their loved ones, to make sure that they're in a clean, healthy environment. Health and wellness is a top priority, and aging in place is something that people all over the world are trying to figure out how to do it, as far as going to universal design, how to deal with adaptive accessibility components. Getting older is a reality that we are all faced with, but struggling while we're getting older is a choice. It's a decision that we can make to make life easier for ourselves. So I commend you, Heather, for now getting involved and realizing that, John, you've always been this person that you've always been, which is a very deflective, avoidant personality, but you use it with a sense of humor. Not once have I ever seen John lash out or say anything, off-putting. He's very considerate, very thoughtful in his words, and very kind, and he has a very gentle soul. But deep down, beyond that, you can tell that there's somebody that's also, suffering and struggling and trying to adjust to what's happening, but knowing that deep down inside, there's a better way to live. Which brings me to the conclusion that we're at right now. LifeCycle Transitions is all about helping people adjust to change. And by doing so, we look at situations like John, and we explore 3 possible avenues. Option 1, if John wants to live in this home that he's been in for a number of years, what do we need to do to eliminate the hazards, the dangers, the things that are gonna, basically, put him in a position where the home's gonna be condemned, but also injure him in a situation where maybe he falls, or maybe something gives way, or the integrity of the property, falls apart, and he trips and falls in between the floor joists. So let's address all those repairs, all those structural issues. Let's get running water into the property. Let's make sure that the electrical is intact and it's up to code, so that there are no fire fire hazards. This deal with the packing, the sorting, the cleaning, the organizing, and make the place comfortable so he can stay and age in place for as long as he wishes. Then option two is, I've been here long enough. I've raised my family here. Negotiating 3 flights, which John has 3 flights, is no longer practical for a number of reasons. And in the basement, so this is no longer suitable or sustainable in a sense that staying here, I'm throwing good money at bad money, I'm wasting good effort on poor results, or I'm putting more strain and tax on my body that I should or need to when I can be in a much more conducive environment for where I am at this stage of my life. So getting the house on the market, doing a market comparable analysis, seeing what the house is worth in its current condition, what did it be worth to make it market ready, based on the house across the street and so on and so forth. And we have all the resources, all the experts that will give us concrete, solid information based on what's happening today, what happened 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, if you will. And then option three is our home rescue program, which was designed about 8 years ago for clients that don't have the time, money, energy, or resources, and don't want to go under the magnifying glasses of dealing with all the intricacies that go into construction and renovations, and dealing with pulling permits and making sure you manage all these different affairs that go into an undertaking like the one that John's dealing with. Um, as a transition expert, I've helped clients in every imaginable scenario. And the client, in the end, after getting this wealth of information, decides what direction they want to go. And it's our job to help them execute it. But information is critical. And in a world where information isn't readily given to you because of whatever reason, we want to change that narrative. We want to make sure that John and you, Heather, now working to be his power of attorney, you control the narrative. You're making informed decisions based on insight, based on knowledge, based on facts, so that when you are handling John's affairs, you know that he's not being taken advantage of, and that there's no one taken advantage of in a situation, and that the decision that you made is a decision that John was 100% behind. That's what we want to do here, and that's what the focus of transitioning over 1,000 clients has been about. I know when we spoke yesterday, there was a lot of information that you were dealing with. One, you were dealing with the emotion of finally getting access to this home that you said you haven't been in, Heather, in what, 15 years?
15, 20.
And also John now dealing with his emotions, because John didn't show it and he wasn't very forthcoming with it. But I know John you must have felt some discomfort having us in this environment, right?
I actually think he loved having us there.
Oh, John, you loved having us there? John, did you love having us there?
I'm not sure you were enjoying it too much.
No,
John,
he liked the company. He liked having people. He wasn't alone. He was with us. We were there supporting him. It might sound crazy, but he loved having us there.
John, are you an attention giver? Are you one of those people that needs that attention?
Tell him. Well, he has an alternate personality, right?
Oh, now you're shy, John. John, don't tell me you're turning shy on us now. John.
I am part canine. But
are you?
Well, I mean,
well, it sounds like I agree with what Heather's saying. Not having the interaction in the company, and then, having us there does make a world of difference. And the interesting thing is that when you have secrets and you keep the outside world away for so long, and then you finally open up your doors, like a lot of my clients have done for the first time in 10, 12, 20, 30 years, it's a breath of fresh air. Did you feel like you were letting off a lot of that anxiety by finally opening the door, John?
It opening a pathway to transition to something else. We mentioned the family unit that I got off the border. Well, they're back. They're here now. They're here. They're in Chelsea now. You have no idea how much I love this family, how much they love me. And essentially, I did it 50 years ago, adopted a family, and now I'm doing it again. I'm adopting this family. So now I have a 38-year-old son and a 12-year-old grandson, and a nephew, and an extended family in Salvador. And so they want me, at this point, they want me to be with them. They want me to live with them as grandfather, whatever, son.
So,
So
so John,
this may help make that possible.
so John, now I have to ask you the question that I think myself and all the viewers are waiting on. What do you want?
What do I want? I have no idea. Really.
Well, that's going to be very concerning because for me, the biggest joy that I get is making my clients happy. Because when you're going through the rigmarole and the turbulence that's often going to occur when dealing with such um, a gigantic transition like this, you're going to be dealt with the adversity, the emotions, the ups and downs, and the indecisiveness. So having that goal in front of you makes it a lot easier to push through. What makes you happy, John? I mean, in your even throughout all of this, what are the happiest moments of your life these days?
I don't know. I'm happy when other people are happy.
Well,
if that makes any sense to you.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me ask you this question because now that's going to bring me to my next question. Heather, what makes you happy?
What makes me happy with John
Absolutely.
is him being in a safe, comfortable space. He needs to be somewhere with running water and heat where I know he's safe, where he's not somewhere that, I mean, I don't know the air quality in the place. The walls are crumbling. It will make me, I will sleep again at night when John is in a safe, comfortable space.
All right.
But
Well,
I'm
John,
not until then. And like, I kind of have I'm his daughter, but I have Mama Bear hat on after what I saw yesterday. And the situation is going to be fixed one way or another. It can't go on.
Well, John, you heard it. You heard it. You heard what makes her happy. And I know you love your daughter and you want her to be happy. What makes her happy is to see you in a much healthier living environment than the one that you're currently living in. As we said before, the house has gotten so bad that you're currently not able to live there. I mean, you're living and sleeping in your car, and you're sleeping in other places that are not undeserving of a person with your heart. I mean, you're a wonderful person. I mean, anyone that is watching and listening to this podcast will garner that in the first 5 minutes of talking to you. You're a very humble person, and there isn't a lot of great people in the world, but the ones that are out there keep the world balanced so that we all feel inspired to do the best that we can to protect people like you. And this is why I get up every day, every morning to fight that good fight so that I can give people like you a new start. Talking to your daughter, that's what she wants. You hear it from me, that's what I want. And we want to do everything we can in our power to provide as many options after we end this call to provide you the amount of options to decide the best course of action. You can have any option you want, just the one that you're currently living in is no longer an option. Let's have that conversation. Again, thank the two of you for participating on today's episode of the Transition Expert. It was a joy to talk to you. I'm so darn excited to come up with a game plan so that we can make you guys into it, so we can put you guys in a much happier, much more pleasant living environment, and have you guys be our 1,200 transition in 13 years. So again, thank you for all the viewers who are watching today's episode. And if you've learned anything from listening to Heather as well as listening to John, then that's the goal. The focus of today's episode is to inspire change and to help people make those tough decisions, but to identify them. The 3 A's: accept, acknowledge, and address. And when it's more than a change, it's a transition. Thank you guys so much for being a guest on the show.
Bless you, Brandon. Thank you.
God bless.